Have you ever seen someone that literally is willing to debate an unknown opponent on an unknown topic while they have a month to prepare and perform that well? I don't even know anyone who does that, let alone then dominates the debate like that. Now, I know it's a little bad form to brag about how well you did, but I mean, come on.
Welcome to Project VOPod. Thank you so much for being in tune, guys. You could be anywhere on the fucking internet, but you're here on Project VOPod to, of course, watch the debate of the night right here, right? The mystery debater. Who is this mystery debater, Jake? Everybody's kind of been asking, right? Especially perhaps even Rob Noor, because we are right here, everybody. No introduction is even needed for Rob. Everybody already knows who you are, of course. But look, Rob, I got to just explain this really quickly. The last debate you did, all right, you won that debate on a flawless victory. A flawless victory. Not only that, you avoided any type of blocking in that flawless victory. No blocking at all. Just went and just destroyed them. And then on top of that, you did a fatality on your opponent. You literally did freeze powers, took his spine out. And because you did all those things, now you unlocked a mystery debater. Yes, a mystery debater. And he is entering the arena now.
Here comes a new joke. You must crush them.
All right. Go ahead, Mr. RC3. Go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell them about your channel and where they can find you. And go ahead, man. Introduce yourself to Robert and the audience.
Hey, what's up, guys? My name is RC3. I am the host of the RC3 podcast. You can find me on YouTube, and you can find me on TikTok as RC3 Podcast. I want to thank Jake for inviting me here tonight. Me and Jake, we have a pretty cool history of doing a couple of debates ourselves.
Yeah.
You know, getting to know ourselves, our positions. So thanks for giving me the opportunity to have a conversation, a debate with Rob Noor. Rob, thanks for also taking the time, and I'm looking forward to a good faith conversation.
All right, there you go. There you have it, man. So yeah, Rob, just FYI, he is very much familiar with your work. So I'm sure he disagrees with probably like 90% of everything you say. So it should be interesting. Now to the audience, FYI, RC3 over here is going to control the topics. Rob does not know what he's going to bring up. He has no idea. He didn't even know who he was going to debate. He's meeting him for the first time right now. With that being said, I'll give you, RC3, the opening statement here.
Okay, sounds good. Well, I mean, listen, if Jake is going to glaze Rob a little bit, I guess I might as well do it also, right? So before we take the gloves off, I want to first compliment you on something, Rob. I recently saw your debate on Christian authoritarianism with Andrew Wilson. And I got to tell you, man, you handled yourself like a G in that one.
Thank
you. Know, there was a point in the debate where Andrew called the founding fathers of America woke progressives or some such nonsense like that, which ironically for Andrew commits to the fallacy of presentism, right? And if someone's going to commit themselves to that like line of dogmatism that deep in the service of monarchy and divine command, I'm glad someone with good sense and know-how was there to respond with a proper argumentation, man. So
Thanks.
Kudos to you, man.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm sure you'll hate me by the end of the night, but that's okay.
Well,
you probably will.
well, listen. If I don't, then we did something wrong,
that's
right?
True. Yeah.
That's
no one wants to see us sing Kumbaya. Yeah. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, So I wanted to start off by giving you my kudos on that. It was kind of a crazy debate, man. But you brought up a lot of the points that I would hope somebody would have brought up a long time ago, you know.
Well, thanks.
But okay, let's get down to brass tacks, okay? So it like I said, in preparing for this conversation, I saw that you fancy yourself a bit of a populist, right?
It's true. Yep, that's what I consider myself first and foremost politically.
Okay, and for the audience, you know, populism is often framed by the most common definitions as like the taking of the side of the common man, right, against the struggle against the powerful, the elites, the locally, nationally, and globally, right? I mean, we're on the same page on that one.
Yeah, I would say if we need to get hyper specific into the definition, maybe we can, but I think that's fair, a general overview. That's what I would say.
Okay. And, Trump himself ran as a cultural and economic populist. In many of the speeches he's given and gave both before the elections, he, espoused a lot of economic populism. So I want to concentrate the first part of our debate, and maybe it might drag on because there's a lot to discuss. I mean, on this issue alone, we can go on for probably hours. But I want to concentrate on the economic aspect, and here's where I'll get to my first claim. Okay, despite running as the populist champion of the working class, Donald Trump is actually the enemy of the American working class. And this one for me is actually it's one of the easiest claims, as he's been the enemy of the working class most of his entire life. And, before he even ran for president, he was stiffing the working class at his job sites when he would refuse to pay workers for jobs they did for him. Conservative estimates around 80 million in unpaid wages to contractors, carpenters, vendors, painters, many of whose small businesses went under directly because of Trump. Or, the fact that even as a billionaire, rather than hiring American workers to work at his resorts, he hired immigrants, right? Now, this is just his personal life. These are the fruits he bared as a businessman in America when left to his own devices, his own instinct, when guided by his own comfort. This is who he was at the core.
I'm sorry, Raleigh, you're kind of, maybe you're speaking a little too loud. Could you repeat that last part?
Okay, just let me know, will you, if my microphone starts to crack, okay? So I can lower the volume.
It peaked just a little there, and we lost the last sentence. That was all. Incidentally, just to let everyone know, I'm not in prison after I brutalized my last debate opponent. I'm actually on vacation with my family, so if my tech craps out, bear with me. I promise I'll hop right back on if there's a crash or anything, just to let you all know. So
for sure, Rob.
Okay, so you said you didn't catch the last thing I said. What I was saying is that this is who Trump is at his core when the political spotlight isn't shining on him, or wasn't shining on him. And now we're told that as president he's a different man, right? And since he did run for president as an economic populist, that's what I'm going to grade him on here today. So since Rob fancies himself a populist, I have a couple of Trumpian populism examples at work, and I'd like to hear from Rob to see if this is the kind of populism he can get behind, okay? All right, so here we go. In no particular order, unless Rob has something to say before I continue.
I would be happy to jump in real quick. So,
okay.
Yes, I do consider myself a populist. Yes, Trump is considered a populist president by many of the people like me and sort of what I would call common people. I try to represent people that I live around. We're all tribal. I don't really focus my tribalism on religion or on race. I do it almost exclusively on geography and way of life, and that is rural Americans. I don't care your creed, your skin color, any of that stuff. I feel like we are belittled as flyover country. These are the greatest people I know that are welders, carpenters. They may have been able to barely pass high school and not have an understanding of Shakespeare or anything, but they're hardworking people that are very intelligent and, more importantly, very kind and wise. And I think they're the backbone of this country, and I feel that they get treated like crap. They would have crawled over broken glass to vote for Donald Trump because despite the fact that Trump is a Manhattanite billionaire, they legitimately felt like he was the first person to run for president in their lifetime, probably, at least since Reagan, that actually would seek to not just hear them out, but didn't treat them with actual contempt and call them flyover country and piss on their leg and make promises to them that they felt would be unresponsive. Whether or not that's true, we'll have in this debate, but that is the image that Trump got. For me, what he did with, we could talk until you're blue in the face. You want about allegedly what Trump didn't pay this work or whatever. I didn't elect the man because of his personal life. I elected the man because of what he represented and the policies that he enforces. So I don't really care about his business life prior to that. Specifically, though, when it comes to economic populism, fine having this debate. That's not the type of populism that I think most is what's reserved for Trump. I think most is that they thought he was a populist in the sense that they think the system is corrupt and that he would challenge that corrupt system. Of course, that does work with economics as well, so I'm happy to have this debate, but to me, economics was not at the forefront of why people that consider themselves common man voted for Donald Trump.
So just before I continue, you don't think that economics was at the forefront?
I don't think it was at the forefront. I think
Even
that
though
that's certainly a consideration.
even though they literally ran on lower grocery prices and lower on inflation?
No, I definitely think those are core issues, but I would say if you ask most populists, they would say things that are tangentially connected to economics, such as the industrial class being wiped out in the United States, mass immigration from open borders, which leads to cultural changes as well, in addition to cultural things that they see of, like, we could talk about trans issues, we could talk about the demonization of rural America, etc., the demonization of white people, Christians. I think all of these things were equally important, but certainly economics was an important factor. I'm not running from the debate. I'm just saying I don't think it's as sole of a front factor as you're claiming here.
Okay, well, because I think exit polling does show that economics was largely the number one factor.
Was it higher than the border?
I think so.
Maybe,
but
maybe I don't know.
Yeah. Maybe Jay can check on that one for us. I'm not trying to blow smoke up anybody's ass.
Doesn't matter. I'm not running from the debate, so I'm willing to debate Trump economic populism. No problem.
Okay, so let's do it then. So number one on my claim is that Trump gets elected, Rob, and the first thing he does is he hires Elon Musk as a temporary government worker, right? And then he guts the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau in his first 100 days of his second term. Now, for your audience, Jake, who might not know what the CFPB is, it's basically the scam police, okay? And to date, it's returned almost $21 billion to over 200 million defrauded Americans. And if you think about it, this is the ultimate populist agency that we had before it got gutted by Trump and Doge, right? And so since Trump came back to the White House, one of the cases that I want to draw your attention to is the consent order in the matter of the Navy Federal Credit Union, where the CFPB found that Navy FCU illegally charged their members, made up primarily of military veterans, over $80 million in illegal overdraft fees, and were ordered to pay that back plus another $15 million as a civil penalty. All this under the Biden administration. And the cherry on top was that Navy FCU agreed and were on schedule to pay back these veterans the money that they were scammed out of. That is until Trump came around and dismissed the case through Russ vote, the Project 2025 ghoul. So no explanation was given. And so drawing on that, unless I have a fundamental misunderstanding of populism, and it's actually the veterans who are the elites, and these bankers are the working class victims, then I got to know, what kind of populism is this?
Okay, so first thing, when you say that Trump gutted it, what percentage of their budget did Trump cut? What percentage of the employees did he fire?
I believe for the CFPB, it was upwards of 50%.
So he cut 50% of their budget.
About half of it, right? And it wasn't just the CFPB. Yeah, I mean, it was federal workers across the board.
Sure, I agree that he's trying to cut.
Right.
Would you agree with this, that the size and the spending of our government is unsustainable?
It depends.
In what way? So let's say Trump wasn't elected and it was President Kamala Harris. You would agree that she wasn't going to cut the size of government, correct?
More than likely.
Okay, so then if those sorts of presidents won in perpetuity, how long would it be before it's a crisis as we're spending out of control debt, our government gets bigger and bigger?
Okay, but so now we're getting into another topic, and so for now, if I can, it's not another topic, because what I'm saying is we're starting from a baseline. Was the path we were on sustainable, right? And how much did Trump cut? That's sort of the crux of what you're saying. And so I'm just trying to get to, how long did you think, if we wouldn't have had a radical change, that the path we were on was sustainable? That's all I'm asking. I know, I completely understand that, but the question is almost irrelevant, because that's not the path that the Trump administration is on currently. I disagree. The big beautiful bill just added $3 trillion in deficits. Okay, so I would entertain the argument if we were on this path to austerity, and we're not. So
it has. If I may, that is sort of a different issue. By the way, I'm not the biggest fan of the big, beautiful bill, and I think raising the debt ceiling is a mistake, and certainly it's spent money. However, it spent money on a campaign promise that Trump issued and one that needs to occur, which there is mass popularity, which is their needs because of the previous administration, which I assume you supported. We have millions and millions of people that were left in. Now we're left with a crisis where we no longer have the infrastructure to deport these people. Deporting these people will benefit us economically. It will get us on a path to sustainability for blue-collar workers in this country, thus making him an economic populist, which is the core of your argument. The question is, though,
when I jump into immigration, and we'll get there.
That's right. We're not jumping to it, but I'm merely saying you brought up the big, beautiful bill. I'm telling you why spending was included there. That's all I'm saying, right? That's a separate issue that is necessary because of the open border policies, which is a economic populist message. The point I'm trying to make, though, is fundamentally Doge and sort of the cuts that Trump are offering across the board type cuts are necessary because the path we are on wasn't sustainable.
But again, Rob, I would grant you that if we didn't also just spend $1 trillion on the Pentagon. Okay,
again,
that is the same bill that we're talking about.
Again, what I'm saying is there are things that they felt were necessary, which I'm not the biggest fan of, right? I get that, right? But you could already see due to the policy overarchingly that Trump had, we had our first month of actually having a budget surplus since like 2021. So the policies that he's enacted, at least in the short term, are removing us from sort of the deficit spending that we've had. That is in part because of the cuts he's issued and also in part because of the tariffs that he's put in. And so far, we haven't seen the radical downturn that people were suggesting in things like the stock market or inflation that were predicted.
Well, this first month, today was when inflation started rearing its head. So inflation kicked up this month.
How much?
I'm sorry, last month.
How much?
The exact amount, I don't know, but I know the trend reversed, that's the important thing.
It's very interesting. So, like, at one point under the Biden administration, we were seeing year-to-year inflation that was double digits, right? And so what happens is everyone wants a panacea as sort as Trump comes in. It's going to be difficult for Trump to have deflation.
No,
what you're seeing... If I may, real
quick. But that's not what I'm saying. But okay, go on.
But like now we're talking about like I would like, my understanding is that inflation was still below 2%, and certain types of inflation, I believe like CPI and possibly producer inflation was actually lower than expected. So I would be interested in hearing your claims that inflation was up. Of course, we expect in any administration to be slight dips and ebbs and flows, but Trump issued these policies and we were told, probably by people you support, I'm assuming Democrats, etc., that it was going to be a disaster, that inflation was going to be runaway, that we were going to like see all of these deficits, etc. So far, that hasn't been the case. Instead, what we're seeing is record trade deals.
Record trade deals? Well,
Japan just the other day, where Donald Trump is so good, he sold Japan rice.
Okay, sure. So let's stick to the topic that we're on here because, so you mentioned inflation, right? And you also mentioned something that I hadn't heard of. Maybe it's something that just happened this month. A budget surplus?
Yeah, last month there was actually a budget surplus. I believe in the month of June.
By how much?
Well, let me check. Again, most of I'll be honest with you, this is no excuse. Most of like data like this I usually save on a bookmark on my computer, but because I'm on vacation, I'm on a laptop. So I will try to find that for you very quick. Now I will say,
yeah, no, that's fine. That's fine. And also, I'm not gonna hold it. I'm not gonna be too hard on you because, again, you didn't know the topic, right? So.
But I will say that, can I say this real quick, though?
Yeah.
So far, you've made several claims and they haven't given any data for it, which I'm fine with in general. For example, you haven't given me any sort of data to back up how much he cut the Consumer Protection Bureau, nor have you given me any claims of how much inflation went up. You've made the claim, but you didn't provide data. You just said. So I'm at least trying to find the.
Okay. Most of this data comes from the Bureau of Labor Statistics.
But give me the exact it doesn't have to be exact to the number, but give me a general idea. How much was inflation up? Like a general idea.
Okay, well, I can look that up since we're both looking up information.
The U.S. federal government recorded a budget surplus of $27 billion in June 2025.
Okay, and what link is that? Just real quick.
It was from. Let me see here. CNBC, Treasury post unexpected surplus in June as tariff receipts surge. With the government reading swelling throughout the year, June saw a surplus of just over $27 billion, falling $316 billion deficit in May. Customs duties totaled about $27 billion for the month, up from $23 billion in May, and a 301% gain from June 2024. So CNBC.
Okay, so let's get into that a little bit, right? Because if we're gonna talk, let's say that that's factual, right? We do have a surplus. The main contributing factor is what, tariffs?
That would certainly be a big contributing factor in that. I think that
Okay.
also, I think that there would be other things though that would go into it, not just tariffs. For example, policies that would lead to sort of increased productivity in the United States, like job growth's been higher than expected, other things like that. I think that would also contribute.
Okay, so on this tariff business, right? You do acknowledge that it's us taxpayers that are fitting the bill for that, right?
That's normally true, though it's not as clear cut as what you suggest. Certainly.
That's pretty clear cut.
Well, I don't think so. I think that people misrepresent the data. Certainly, I don't disagree with you in principle that the way this would work is if we put tariffs, say, on steel, and a company requires steel to build their car, they will pass the cost of that tariff on to the consumer. That's what you're talking about when you mention the taxpayers paying it, correct?
Right.
Okay.
Or just for example, if my buddy, he buys shirts from China, right? And he has a business here. So when he buys shirts from China, he now has to pay that extra tariff, that extra cost, right? In these extra tariffs and duties, and now that he passes that cost on to his consumer, so he's paying twofold. We're paying twofold. His consumers are paying, and he's paying.
So
right?
Two things.
So we're taxed into the surplus.
Two things, though, right? First,
Yeah.
right, the first thing I would suggest is this. I don't think it's a direct one-to-one correlation. In other words, if his price increases 15%, he is not literally increasing the price 15% to the consumer. The data seems to suggest, although there is a cost incurred on the consumer, it's not a direct cost to the direct cost of the tariff. So the producer is eating some of that cost. To go along with that, there are other pluses that come with tariffs that we're not talking about. One is the political leverage that comes with them and getting these trade deals, which I think will end up being a very good thing. And the other thing is that it encourages businesses to do business in the United States to avoid the cost of the tariff. So although there could be short-term pain, if we have more infrastructure built in the United States, particular for sort of manufacturing jobs, which again is not sustainable how much they've fled the United States, then it would certainly be worth it. The other thing, though, is when you're talking specifically about us incurring the cost, then it would show up in the inflation data. And yet inflation's been quite reasonable under Trump, despite the fact we had doomsayers warning that it was going to go through the roof because tariffs would mean that consumers were eating the price increase.
Well, right. So the doomsayers, haven't been entirely incorrect, right?
So how much of price has gone up?
This data it takes a couple of months. It takes a few months to start to. You're not going to see a turnaround from 1 month to the next. We agree on that, right?
Yeah, certainly.
These are processes that take a minute. And not to start off with, Trump would say that he's raising tariffs 50%, and then he would say, "Well, wait, just give me a minute, right? Let's give these countries, another 90 days before we go further in this." So there's been a lot of a standstill, Rob. Companies aren't making moves because Trump is so unpredictable on tariffs, right?
If the data doesn't back that up.
Well, it is backing it up now because like I just showed you, inflation is kicking up this month. And I don't want to just say that inflation is kicking up and I'll give you a number. So I'm going to look it up now, okay?
Okay, as you're doing that, if you don't mind,
yeah,
if I could respond somewhat, right? So again, I don't think that it's up near as much. You say, well, we wouldn't expect it to happen immediately. Yet, from the time that Trump announced these tariffs, the experts on places like CNBC, CNN, etc., New York Times, elsewhere, Wall Street Journal, have been telling us that, we expect to see these massive increases by now. We haven't seen them. The other thing is, and I'll ask you this, do you think that there is a problem with the manufacturing sector being crushed in this country since the 1980s? You're looking that up, so I'll answer as a rhetorical question, which
Yeah,
is,
sure.
it's not sustainable. Blue collar workers have been screwed in this country. What has happened as the United States has become more and more leaning into being a financial sector and the world reserve currency, we've actually been outsourcing dollars instead of the products that we were known for making all through our booming years in the 70s, etc. And so what's happened is the wealth of this country has been largely given to the upper class, and it's been outsourced to countries around the world. But people that used to be in the middle class, particularly in manufacturing sectors here, like the automotive industry, the steel industry, other industries like that, have suffered over and over again. Those are the people in the area of the world where I live. They've been told that their standard of living needs to decrease over and over and over. They rarely have wage growth. They're basically stagnant since the 80s. And the problem is it's not sustainable, including not just not being sustainable from them, but countries that we consider our enemies like China, we're now increasingly reliant on average products that we need day to day. Not just things like textiles, like things like cheap toys, clothing, etc., but important things like simple vaccines, simple pharmaceutical products, ammunition. All of this is very troubling and not sustainable when the second most powerful country in the world, arguably, and our greatest geopolitical rival, we are now relying on for the necessities we have in life and the necessities if we would ever go to battle with them. Even during the pandemic, we were told over and over when it came to things that were apparently necessary, like PPE, we had to borrow them from China. We had to purchase that from China. So the status quo wasn't sustainable. That, yeah. So then I'll just end by saying this. It is actually these sorts of tariffs and things that you're complaining about here is the very definition of economic populism. In fact, unions are largely supporting Trump more than any Republican president in decades. And that's because they saw his tariff policies that he was suggesting as being pro-U.S. worker. So this is an economic populist message. Now, can it be true that there will be some sort of short-term pain? Yeah, it might even be true that this blows up in his face, but we're not seeing that right now. And at least Donald Trump's trying to radically depart from the status quo, because if the status quo continues, we will see a continual erosion not only of manufacturing, but of the U.S. middle classes, as we'll increasingly become the haves and the have-nots. That is what the traditional Republican Party and certainly what the historic and current Democratic Party represent. So I'm glad to see someone taking a chance on the U.S. worker. Apparently, you don't think that's economic populism, though.
Well, I'll explain why. And so I want to, that last point you made right now about unions. That's one I want to get to in my last point. But first, this is according to Reuters. Okay, there was an increase in consumer prices in June by 0.3%. Okay,
is that year to year?
It's since January.
Okay, so since January, prices have gone up 0.3%.
Correct.
Okay, so what was the average under? You would agree that we should compare him to sort of other presidents to judge how well he's doing, correct?
Well, I want to compare. I want to compare him to the last quarter of Biden, because we're talking about tariffs, right? So so unless you got another point in history where another president did tariffs that we can compare like for like, then that would work. So the reason why this is it's gaining people's economist attention is because it's a reversal in trend. Okay, and while you might be right so far that tariffs haven't completely derailed the market or haven't bitten us back, that could soon change, and a lot of economists are predicting that might change. Now, you might not care what the economists say, and quite frankly, I might not blame you, but that is the current state of affairs.
According to inflationcalculator.com, over the last quarter of the Biden presidency in 2024, inflation was roughly 2.73%. What did you say Trump's was? 0.3?
No. It went up 0.3%.
Okay, Biden's went up 2.73 year over year.
I want to know what the base is, though.
So I think that what's happening, if I could steelman the position, I think there is a fundamental misinterpretation of the data, perhaps on my part as well, which is most of the time the ways this is calculated is year over year. And so I think the data I'm reading that talks about in the last quarter, inflation was up 2.73% under Joe Biden. That was probably what it was year over year at that point. I don't quite know how you're able to calculate sort of the 6 months total of Trump, but let's assume that we do and say that is 0.3 for 6 months. Then if that rate would continue, that would be 0.6 for the full year, whereas Biden was 0.273 year over year. So that's still less than half of inflation that Biden was, which you said we should compare it to.
Right. But so maybe I didn't articulate my argument well enough. So
Now, please, if I may, can we focus on this point? You articulated quite clear. You said that we should compare inflation rates under Trump in this first 6 months to Biden's last quarter, and I'm giving you what the data was.
Right, but this is important because the one part that you're ignoring of what I said was that this is a reversal in trend, because regardless, inflation was going down.
That's not true.
Inflation was going down.
Then why did it go up 2.73 between October 2024 to October 2023?
I don't think that's correct.
It is.
I think it was going down from a high baseline. Okay, so
no. If I may, you're correct that that's something we should look at. So, for example, I'm no genius, right? I'm no economist or anything. So, can I try to break this down in maybe a way we can both agree? Let's say Biden comes into office and bread is $1 a loaf, just to give it a nice round number, right? And let's say at the end of 4 years of Joe Biden that bread is $4 a loaf, right? So that would be what, 300% increase, right? It's 4 times more expensive, whatever, right? If year one the bread was $4 a loaf, then the next 3 years of Biden, we'd say, he defeated inflation. It's been $0 because it's coming from a high baseline. But if it goes up $1 every year, we'd say, inflation's 100%. But either way, you're still paying 4 times as much for a loaf of bread. When you're talking about a high baseline, that's not going to answer my criticism, which is the high baseline of 2023, which you admit was an insanely high baseline because up until then, Biden's inflation numbers were out of control. You agree with that, correct?
Yeah, there's no contention there.
Okay, last point, I finished. So even after that high baseline, it still went up another 2.73%. And that's with the high baseline. It went up 2.73%.
Okay, so here's my question for you. What am I missing that these economists are now saying that there has been a reversal in trend and inflation is ticking up?
It's a reversal.
What are they getting wrong?
It is a reversal in trend from Trump's presidency thus far, I believe, is what they're talking about.
Right. So there was a static level of inflation since January, right? And
that's not necessarily true. It was low, but you have to understand, static level of inflation would imply zero, no inflation. That's not true. That's very rare.
No, well, that's not what I meant.
Okay, fair enough. That's what static sounds like. That's all I'm saying.
No, well, that's not what I meant. So what I mean is that there was not very much movement. Okay, so it had gone to a point where it was, I'm not going to say ideal, but we had gotten to what it was at 2.8 or 2.9 under Biden in his last quarter, or maybe 3.1, so somewhere around there.
It was 2.73 over the last quarter. In December 2024, his last month, it was 2.9% year over year. The data I'm looking at from... Now, let me be clear. That is from U.S. inflation calculator, which I've used. Let me look that up. Let's see if I can find that now. Now, sometimes it's difficult in some of these sites to find current data, so I'll try my best. Now, I will say I have no problem looking this up, but the irony here is this is the affirmative claim that you have made, not me. So you've spoken what I think is sort of, I've heard people say this, and you have no idea what the data says yourself.
Well, I mean, what I'm saying is this is what the economists are saying.
Who? Which economists?
The majority of economists. Right now, that's the claim that they're making. I mean, if you want me to name you off the top of my head...
Now I'm admitting that I just went to AI to look this up, though it does source all of this. Unfortunately, though, the sources are all different sources. But I'll read them to you and give you what the source is, and then if you like, we could go painstakingly one by one to see if it's true. But this data sounds about right to me, right? This is reflecting CPI inflation data. January 2025, it was 3%. So that would have included 20 days of Biden and then 10 days of Trump, or 11 days of Trump. February 2025, which would be the first full month, inflation year over year was 2.8%. March, it was 2.4. April, 2.3. May, 2.4. June, 2.7. Hence the 0.3% increase that you're talking about.
Correct.
So you're saying that it went from 2.8 to 2.4 to 2.3 to 2.4 to 2.7, and that's somehow a troubling increase, a 0.3% increase, a number that is still, real quick, a number of 2.7% that is still beneath the benchmark that you said that we should evaluate, which was Biden's final quarter. It's still beneath Biden's number.
Well, it would depend, right? Like, my claim would ring true, for instance, Rob, if next month it was at 3%. right? And if the month after that it was at 3.2%. So the only point I made. So well, hold on.
You can wish in one hand and shit in the other, I guess, right? Of course. If you're right that inflation goes up, but you're talking about the current data.
Right.
And the data doesn't back up what you're saying.
No, but you already acknowledged that inflation went up.
Inflation. Okay.
Okay, no, it's okay. Then what am I missing,
Inflation
Rob?
compared to what? Inflation went up compared to what?
Compared to the month before.
Yes, that's true. That happens even. No. Let me be clear. That is not what you're saying for two reasons. One, let me respond.
That is what I'm saying.
That's not what you're saying for two reasons.
How are you going to tell me that's not what I'm saying? But go ahead.
Okay, I guess I'll get to the second thing I wanted to say first, because you said the benchmark for which we should compare is Joe Biden's last quarter. That's what you were comparing it to. You said compared to Biden's last quarter, if we want to analyze tariffs, we would look at the economy thus far under Trump compared to Biden's last quarter. And inflation's down compared to Biden's last quarter. So now you're trying to move the goalpost and saying, oh, no, it's slightly up since last month, which is absurd. Secondly, I'll leave you respond to that if you like. That's what you said. Do you deny that you said that?
Well, I'll leave it to the safekeeping of the audience. My initial claim, and you know this because you heard me loud and clear. My initial claim was that the concerning part was the reversal in trend, and that's obviously month to month. Now, you're right. I did what? That's you don't believe that?
No, I don't believe when you get into the details, and I'm asking specifically what you're talking about a reversal in trend, and you said you said the way we would isolate the impact of tariffs is to compare inflation under Trump compared to Joe Biden. That's what you said. Now you're saying, oh, clearly what I meant was from the previous 2 months. The other thing is, this is nonsensical because, these trends, it's almost never the exact same. There are times when we've seen massive economic excesses and decrease in the speed of inflation where you might see 1 or 2 months where it ticks up 0.1% or 0.2%. That's hardly cause for alarm. And again, we're using this in a world where the economists that you're talking about and sort of the message that I'm assuming you would push was that inflation was going to be a nightmare. It may be that that's the case. I'm making the argument. I'll tell you right now, I predicted more inflation myself. I said that I was weighing two things. I was weighing the status quo being unsustainable, particularly for the working class, right, and for manufacturing, and needing to increase manufacturing, it being unsustainable to work on China. So the status quo is unsustainable. And so Trump offers this policy, tariffs, which it's like, okay, it's a radical departure. I'm cool with that. We'll see if it works. I said my expectation is it'll be used as sort of a political bludgeoning point to encourage good trade deals, which will bring jobs to the United States and have better trade deals, and then the tariffs will be gradually decreased. But the downside to that is there will be short-term unpredictability. And you haven't even made this argument. It's a better argument. Business confidence. Business wants a predictable place to work. And if Trump's suggesting increasing, decreasing tariffs, that's something that big business doesn't like, and with good reason. But still, it's a populist message, which is your central argument. Just because business doesn't like it doesn't mean it's not popular. But the other thing is that it would be short-term increase in prices through the tariffs. And I'm stunned that we haven't seen those short terms. You could be right that in the future, in the next 6 months, that maybe prices will go up. My only point is right now, it's not an anti-populist message. It's actually pro-populist to do this. And so far, the data has been remarkably better than what even the most dire economic predictions suggested.
But here's what you're not mentioning, though, and here's what you're leaving out, is that when economists make these predictions, they don't give a timetable for when it would be impossible.
That's not true at all. Of course they do.
What?
So you're telling me Paul Krugman...
So hold on. So wait. So when economists say, okay, inflation is likely to kick up, they're not going to tell you, so we're going to see inflation July 22nd at 3 o'clock. Right?
Of course not. No one's suggesting that.
That is my point.
No, that's not your point. That is
exactly my point.
Okay.
Well, hold on. So when economists come out and so when they say, okay, so for example, we are predicting inflation to kick up due to these tariffs, right? And for the first 3 months, there is no movement in the inflation market.
When did tariffs start?
When was the Liberation Day? February?
It's February, March. I don't know.
I think it was February.
Okay, so they started in February.
So let's I believe it was in February.
Okay,
right?
so Okay, so proceed. I'm sorry. We'll go with February. I don't have the date in front of me. Fine, we'll go with that. Okay, it's in February,
So-
or at least can we agree at this? Your argument is that tariffs started to be implemented in February. At least talk of them. I don't know if that's true, but that's fine. We'll go with that.
Well, yeah. Well, let's just say for the sake of argument, liquidation day was February.
Okay.
And so I haven't seen one. Maybe you can point me to it. Maybe you're more privy to the economists of the world, but I haven't seen one yet that's going to say that has said next month is when inflation is going to kick up. And keep in mind, we're only in the third, fourth month of this process. And the simple point that I highlighted that for some reason you're just blowing out of proportion is that there's a reversal in trend. And so when you wanted to wave off when I say, look, you'll be right if next month it drops back again, then maybe there won't be any kind of a long-term effect from tariffs. And at that point, I'll simply concede, right? I mean, that's the way these things work. But the reversal in trend is concerning to a lot of economists, and that is a fact.
Okay, there's a lot to say here. First, what you tried to claim here was that economists don't put a time frame on their claims. I said that's not true. You're like, oh, so you're saying they say tariffs will increase inflation by this percentage on June 3rd at 2 p.m. Of course they don't say that, but it is ludicrous to say that they don't put some sort of generic time frame on their argumentation. For example, I'm not an economist. Watch this. In the future, inflation will uptick and downtick. You think I'll be proven right?
Well, you're not. You're doing the Nostradamus effect, right?
No, it has nothing to do with Nostradamus effect, right? It has to do if there is a claim and a prediction made of anything that says something will go up and it will go down, and there's no time frame given. I'm given infinite time frame, then inevitably I'll be proven correct. Right. So you acknowledge, let me finish. So then you would acknowledge the absurdity of that, which would imply that economists, when they're making predictions like this, would have to give some sort of ballpark time frame, correct?
Well, yeah, ballpark time frame is now. So now you're moving the goalpost.
I'm not moving
right?
the goalpost. Like you're the one who said you definitively said that they're not giving a time frame at all. They're not giving any time frame. That's what you said.
Okay, so now we're down to some ambiguous time frame. Okay, so what's the time frame?
You tell me. You're talking about the economists. Go ahead. It's your claim. You tell me what their time frame was. You said they didn't have any time frame. I think that's absurd. You tell me then what the time frame is.
No, you said you're the one that also just made the claim that economists are making preliminary timeframes, that they give some kind of a ballpark.
They have to. And what'll happen? What'll happen is they'll say this. They'll say this action will cause some sort of inflation, right? In this case, you said they predicted tariffs would cause inflation, right?
Correct.
The implication, you tell me if I'm wrong, that they're making. I don't know exactly what economists you're looking at, so I'll need you to tell me whether or not this is true. The implication is as follows. Both for the unpredictability that tariffs will bring and companies thinking because the tariffs are being enacted that they will invest less and have to pay more and charge their consumers more, and because the tariffs literally mean they're paying more for products, that will be what causes inflation. Is that fair?
That's fair.
Okay. Then you say that there's no time frame given on this, though, right?
Not a specific time frame.
Okay, and last thing, you say that you're not me, you. I'm just testing your argument here. You say, let's say for the sake of argument, these tariff policies started in February of 2025.
Yes.
Okay. Why then did we see in months after these tariffs, what you just said, that the economists you're listening to said the inflation would have been triggered by the unpredictability and the literal increase in prices from the tariffs? Why did we not see inflation for February, March, April, May, and we just saw it in June? For 4 months, why didn't we see inflation once these policies were in place?
So point to me to the rule that says that inflation would kick up instantly as the policy is implemented. Where's that rule?
The rule that you just acknowledged, that these economists said that the reason would be the tariffs would cause unpredictability, which would mean consumers would have to pay more, and it would cause increase in prices for manufacturers, which would mean consumers would have to pay more. That's you. So this is why.
Rob,
I'll leave you answer. Sure.
We're talking right past each other right now.
No, we're not. I'm directly responding to you.
Yes, we are. You're not listening to what I'm saying, and I'm trying to listen to what you're saying. Okay, so look. Let's do this. So we can keep talking about tariffs, right? But we're burning daylight. Jake, is the conversation at least dynamic? Is it lively? Should we continue?
This is actually a great conversation right now, or debate. Actually, I would call it a debate. But yeah, continue. I love this so much right now, guys. Go ahead, RC3. You got the point there.
Okay, so I mean, I don't want to keep talking about tariffs because we're just not agreeing on this.
Can I just real quick put a bow on this, right? Like,
yeah, go ahead.
There has to be something. If they say this is the thing that will cause tariffs, and we say, well, it could be like literally, it will immediately cause consumers to pay more, and then for 4 months we don't see it. Then we see a slight uptick, and you go, see, they were right. Then their predictions are nonsensical. I could literally say that about anything. I could say, for example,
my argument.
No, I'm not strawmanning your argument because you're making an argument that their claim is indefinite, right? That inevitably it could be. Let me say this. Let's say that it flatlines, right? Hypothetically, that tariff year-over-year inflation stays at 2.7% for the next 6 months. Fair enough? We can engage in this hypothetical?
Good.
On the 7th month, then, inflation goes up to 3%, and economists say, see, we told you tariffs would do this. Would you agree with them that tariffs caused it?
It would just depend on what policies are being implemented.
The tariffs policy, everything stays the same.
Well, I mean, that I can't tell you. I don't know. Like I said, I mean...
Well, it would be obvious that it would be the tariffs, RC3, because if everything stays the same, right?
Right, but there has, I mean, right. So yeah, that's true. So, but there has to be a confluence in the analysis, right? So the analysis has to be based on geopolitical factors, right? So like, are we in this time? Did a trade deal happen? Are we still not seeing any trade deals happening, right? So I mean, did Trump, did he go full taco and he backed out of tariffs, right? So, I mean,
but you acknowledge
I want to say yes. I want to say yes,
right.
But I mean, but there's a confluence of factors, and you got to acknowledge that.
But of course, but that confluence of factors would prove that the economist's predictions bullshit anyways, because they would only be looking at things in a vacuum. Yes, of course, you could say all things considered, if the tariffs don't lead to increased trade deals, increased manufacturing in the United States, et cetera, then it'll lead to increased prices. But it may lead to all those things. Now, when you're saying that these economists are saying this action will cause increase in prices, and then that action occurs, and it doesn't in month 1, and it doesn't in month 2, and it doesn't in month 3, and it doesn't in month 4, and then in month 5 there's a slight uptick, still far less than it was under the average Biden administration, and you're like, see, they were right. I find that to be nonsensical. I could say, well, there was a confluence of factors. For example, look at all the trade deals. We just had a trade deal with Japan. We had all of these other trade deals that were announced. See, these tariffs led to trade deals, which led to inflation not being as high as people expected. Do you see the problem with this prediction? And if we bring it back to sort of the central focus on this of sort of economic populism, you still haven't contended with the fact that this actually is as pure as it gets for economic populism. In fact, much to the chagrin of people that I have a deep affluence for, which is the libertarians. They're not big fans. I myself am not a huge fan of tariffs. But if nothing else, this is designed to protect the American worker. This is a pure form of economic populism, which you haven't addressed.
So then let's finally get to that, because like I said, we've been talking past each other for the last 30 minutes and we haven't gotten anywhere. So,
I think I've been smacking you around on a point you made for the last 30 minutes, but
okay, I mean, you can, of course you're going to think that. But
that is true.
Let me put a final bow on the point I was making, okay? And then we'll move on to the claim. So my point was simple, right? Is that the tariffs kicked in February, right? We didn't see much movement in March, April, and in May, and right now there was a reversal in that trend, right? That's the point that I was making, okay?
Now, wait a second. I hate to do this. I know this is bad form, but again, this is bad form. You're saying we didn't see much movement, but you're saying that from May to June, a 2.4 to a 2.7 is significant movement?
I'm sorry, the what?
You're saying that from May, we had 2.4 year-over-year inflation, to June, which is 2.7. You're saying that's significant, correct? That's a reversal in trend.
Well, the trend reversal is significant.
Okay, but then wouldn't the trend reversal of we went from 2.8 in February down to 2.4 in March after, in your words, these tariff policies should have been triggering inflation, that's a 0.4% decrease. So when you say we didn't see much movement, that's more movement downward than the movement upward that you're saying significant, which is only 0.3%.
So then my next question to you is, why is there a movement upward then?
What, there could be a litany of factors. Like, for example, it could be that tariffs are partially pushing upwards. It could be so many other things. It could be...
That's all I'm saying, Rob. That's all I'm saying.
No. Let's be clear. That's not what you're saying. You're making the claim
now
that...
it's my turn to slap you around a little bit.
No. That's not what you're saying. The implication of what you're saying is... So your claim is just, we don't know, maybe tariffs are causing a slight uptick in inflation. That's your claim?
My claim is that's what economists are saying.
Okay, well, I don't get, you have to defend that their position is correct.
I know you don't give a shit, right? But you're not an economist, Rob, and neither am I.
Right? But RC3, if you're gonna appeal to the economists, you have to kind of give a claim of why you believe that. I'm
arguing from your rationale of why you say you believe that. This is just an appeal to authority. Like, Scott Bessent disagrees with you. He's an economist. He's at the Treasury. He says that you're wrong. Now what? How do we decide that? So the way we decide this is we debate the claims as we interpret of why we believe what these experts are saying. It's a fallacy to just say, I appeal to the expert, they must be right. But the truth is that's not what you're saying. At least that's not the implicit implication of what you're saying. You're saying, in the general construct of your argument here, is Trump is not an economic populist because tariffs will cause inflation, which hurts common people, right? That's your argument. And so now you've gotten beaten so bad on this is you're saying, well, economists are saying this slight 0.3% uptick could be because of tariffs. That's a very weak position based on the thunder you came in with, saying you were going to prove that Trump wasn't an economic populist.
What I mean, the fact that you've been talking and you didn't even catch your mistake on this one, you've already admitted that this surplus that we're talking about has been a tax on the American consumer. Where's the populism in that?
Well, it's not, because we'd have to compare it to something. Now, we've started with you saying that it should be compared to...
You fell into your own trap, Rob.
I did not. Let me explain, right? It would depend on who we would have to compare it to, right? And so you started off making the claim that we should compare it to Biden's last quarter, which I've already proved to you. There is less inflation year over year, even with these tariffs, which are bringing a surplus, than Biden, which caused mass inflation and brought no surplus.
Just to be clear, I didn't vote for Biden, okay?
Who would you have voted for?
I actually voted for Trump in 2016, and maybe I should have let off with that.
May I suggest voting for him again in 2028?
So I actually voted for Trump in 2016. I took the blinders off in around 2019, and in 2020, I just couldn't vote for a Democrat. So I didn't vote for Joe Biden.
Good for you there. Well, right? No one... Okay, I'm sorry, please. I didn't mean to interrupt. I thought you meant 2024. No problem.
So I don't want to give the impression that you're talking to someone.
Who'd you vote for in 2024? Just to be curious while we're talking.
In 2024, I voted for Harris.
Okay.
So okay, what?
Well, so you voted. You acknowledged that Harris was part of the Biden administration, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and you acknowledged that Biden probably wasn't cognitively making the decisions of his administration, correct?
That is true.
Okay, so then can you tell me, when it comes to populist economic theory, how Kamala Harris would have been markedly different from the Biden administration and the people that were running it?
So just very, very simply, Biden was so much better than Trump just when it comes to unions, just on basic labor unions. Trump had a thing called Schedule F, right, where that prohibited federal workers from unionizing. This was in his first term, right? Biden comes in and he gets rid of that, right? Biden comes in and he raises the federal minimum wage to $15, okay? As soon as Trump comes into office, he undoes that, okay? There's a litany of policies that go on like this where Biden was... Look, I'll even grant it to you guys. It wasn't Biden who was in charge. Whoever Biden's handlers were, I would vote for those people over Trump.
Just curious, if it is true that unions saw Biden as so favorable, then we wouldn't...
I know what you're going to ask.
Go ahead. Tell me what I'm going to ask. Go ahead.
You're going to ask me, why did Trump have so much union support?
Seems like a fair question. Care to answer?
I would love to answer that question. You know, there was an interview that was done by Sagar and Jetty, and he was interviewing... Andrew Schultz. You might have seen this one or you might have not. But there was a huge contingency of the population, including Andrew, and he admitted this, that voted based on culture and voted based on vibes. That just is what it is, right? Trump had the vibes in this last election. He had the assassination attempt, and and he had those the social media behind him, you know, and the fact of the matter is Kamala Harris was cringe as fuck.
You voted for it.
I can admit, yeah, because I don't vote based on vibes, Rob. I'm not you.
So you don't vote by vibes or policy, apparently, because I could school you on all the policy as well if you like.
I just named you a couple of policies that you failed to even rebuttal.
So raising the minimum wage. That's what you named.
Let me finish though. Because you asked me a question and I'm not done yet. Union support, right? I'm actually a steward of the NALC. Shout out to Branch 2130. And so,
can you explain to me what type of union that is? Just curious.
The National Association of Letter Carriers.
So postal workers.
Postal, yeah. Sure. Actually, me and Jake are both postal carriers.
To be clear, it's a public sector job, though, right? Through government.
Correct.
Okay.
With private funding, but it is public. And so, leading up to this election, we had a lot of conversations with a lot of our union brothers, and there was a lot of them that were voting for Trump. And when I would ask the question, listen, guys, Trump is a union buster. You guys know this, right? He's always been a union buster. When he came in the first time, the head of the NLRB that he put was another union buster, a corporatist, right? And the policies are not going to be helpful to you guys. You know what the overarching narrative was? The overarching theme of their response was?
Go ahead.
But trans people.
Okay.
Yeah, but I can't vote for Harris because she wants to give your kids gender transition surgeries. Okay? So I've given you a decent chunk of time. I know I could be long-winded myself, so that's perfectly reasonable. But I'm almost done. I'm almost done.
No problem.
I'm almost done. And so, like I said, this was the overarching theme, right? These cultural matters sometimes outweigh economic kitchen table matters, and I believe that's what happened. Unless you think I'm wrong, then let me know how I'm wrong.
Okay, so I don't deny that the terrible 80-20 issues on culture that Democrats are on the wrong side of certainly would have influence of any Americans regardless of union status. Certainly true. However, I think one of the big reasons that you saw unions, including officials at several unions, endorse Donald Trump or support Donald Trump, even if not given official endorsement, was because they see the manufacturing sector in this country not being sustainable. Something that you seem to agree with in a previous statement when I asked you that. And so they see Trump trying to protect U.S. businesses, particularly through his tariff policies, and think that that's more effectual than the sort of generic support for unions that elsewise the Democrats would offer, which is probably just sending them kickbacks to their leaders through funding like USAID, which then the leaders of the unions then return in the form of campaign contributions right back to those same Democrat politicians. So yeah, I've no doubt that the leaders of many of these unions prefer the Democrats, but the actual workers there, it seems like many of them feel differently. Second, the anecdotal story you told there, I'm not besmirching anecdotal tales. I think that that's an important form of evidence. But keep in mind, the union members you're talking to are a public sector union, seeing as how Trump is more talking about economic populism, which would, in his promises, shrink government workers. I think that you'll see that a lot of people there that were looking at it through an economic or business calculus probably would have leaned towards not wanting Trump to cut their job. The ones that still would have voted for Trump probably would have went for other issues other than economics. However, when we looked at unions outside that sector, we can see that Trump made significant gains in private sector unions. Thirdly, only 9.9% of Americans are in unions. So the idea of whether or not he's favorable to unions doesn't speak directly to whether or not it's a form of economic populism. And lastly, there's a lot of robust debate on whether or not unions are actually good for the average American worker or not. Overarchingly, though, you've conceded that the status quo was not sustainable and trending in the wrong direction when it came to U.S. workers in blue-collar fields like manufacturing, and Trump is issuing policies that even if they do increase prices, will you acknowledge this, that if prices increase because unions, it will have a drive to encourage businesses to build manufacturing in the United States. The trade-off is, the good faith trade-off would be this, right? Even a perspective of someone who doesn't like tariffs would say, look, yes, there could be some manufacturing that's brought back home because tariffs will provide an incentive for that. However, it will be outweighed by the price increases that consumers would incur. But when it comes to the actual workers, this would be of benefit to them, even in that worst case scenario of people that are detrimental on Would you agree with that? That it still, in theory, would bring manufacturing jobs in some degree back to the United States, thus be pro-U.S. worker?
That last part I didn't catch. Can you repeat your last point?
Do you want me to do you want me to explain it or just repeat it?
Just repeat it.
Okay, that if tariffs, the argument is, if you would acknowledge any policy has ups and downs. Very rarely is it just 100% good or bad.
Okay. Trade-off, yeah.
So the trade-off is allegedly, this is the good faith debate, that tariffs will increase prices for consumers, but it will also increase revenue for the United States, hypothetically, right? And it provides an incentive for companies to manufacture in the United States to avoid the tariff. So, for example, if you're a t-shirt manufacturer, instead of building a company in Mexico and then sending it to the United States where you'll be tariffed at 20%, you build it in the United States because it's now more profitable, because the increase in wages that you have to pay your employees is now and by the way, just I'll give you a chance to answer that, but another form of this that unions would have supported, you're aware that one of the most significant union leaders in the history of this country, Hugo Chavez, was vehemently anti-immigration and open borders, which would be another reason that many domestic workers would be very much opposed to Kamala Harris and support Donald Trump, and that would be considered an economic populist message.
I just want to correct you on something. You meant Cesar Chavez.
Perhaps. I'm real bad, like,
Hugo Chavez is a Venezuelan dictator, my friend.
Yes, Cesar Chavez, yes. You were absolutely right. I thoroughly apologize and thank you. But you acknowledged that I'm correct on the...
On the theory.
Theory?
Not on, on the theory of tariffs, of reshoring manufacturing. That is the theory. But that's not what's happening right now. So again, there was a lot that you said that I want to respond to. A couple of points which I already kind of forgot, I'm not going to lie.
I think I talk less than you in that show. Just saying.
But this last one that you made about this theory of remanufacturing, right? And reshoring manufacturing. I mean, if the whole point, Rob, is to bring back manufacturing, then what is the point of making deals? We just keep the tariffs on, and then we just incentivize Americans to build their stuff here. And number two, it's obvious to me that the Trump administration is desperate to make deals. Okay? But the question is why? That goes against that theory that you just espoused. And number three, do you acknowledge that Biden kept in most of Trump's tariffs?
Let's start with number 3. Biden kept in a degree of Trump's tariffs. You could be correct that it was most. That I don't know. I know he rescinded some, but I don't see the relevancy anyways. I could get to why if you like.
One last addendum to that. Biden kept most of Trump's tariffs on China, and he had industrial policy to back it up. The CHIPS Act, the IRA, right? Like so there was an attempt to actually shore up manufacturing here at home with infrastructure repair and with investments in actual production here. Was there any of that in the big beautiful bill?
Yes, so for example, we could see the tariff strategy and so you've asked me like 4 questions. You've made 4 points. So let's start in point 3. Did Biden
confused me too.
Did Biden reverse most of Trump's tariffs? I don't know that that's technically true. It's irrelevant anyways to what we're talking about because we're talking about Trump's
It's not irrelevant.
It is because we're talking about Trump's second term. The only reason we're talking about tariffs right now is you're admitting that Trump increased tariffs over the Biden administration, correct?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so then that's what we're talking about, whether or not that strategy is effective.
That's the stupid part, right?
Okay, if it's status quo, then it would be irrelevant. So anyways, parts 1 and 2, you basically conflated the same argument, so I'll answer the same arguments, which you said this. But if it's true that tariffs have the designated effect of both increasing tax revenues and of driving manufacturing back to the United States, then why even offer the possibility of deals? Well, because there is a ebb and flow of these things, right? There is that here's the plan. If all else fails and the deals don't go through, then the plus side will be we'll get increased tax revenue and we'll drive manufacturing to the United States. However, if great beneficial deals to the United States better than the status quo occur, then we'll offer to rescind most of those tariffs. That's a win-win for the American worker and consumer. So in that world, either it benefits the American worker because it's driving manufacturing to the United States, or it leads to lower cost and better trade deals for them. And by the way, those trade deals are often opening up and causing other countries to rescind their tariffs, which, guess what that'll do? Increase U.S. manufacturing, because right now, U.S. manufacturing, part of the reason they might not want to be building here is, one, they have to pay these workers things. You just said that you were for increase of minimum wage. That would further drive companies out of the United States. And secondly, because other countries make it more affordable through subsidies, through VAT taxes, through tariffs to build in those countries. So if Trump, for example, gets, let's say, Europe to eliminate their tariffs on vehicles, then there could be more, even though, like, we don't have the incentive of tariffs in the United States to drive manufacturing in the United States, you would have companies that are more likely to build in the United States because now they can sell to the European market without being tariffed. So that answers your question about not only would it mean better deals for everyone in the United States, but it actually still better for the U.S. worker because it would have a more even playing field to have a better trade deal, which would mean that we're more likely to manufacture in the United States and sell to other countries.
But that's incoherent.
No, it's not.
And here's why it's incoherent. Because, right, the goal of the tariffs in the first place, right, is not to restructure another USMCA, right? Because if USMCA, for example, was the goal, as it was celebrated in Trump's first term, right? Did you agree with USMCA?
No, I didn't like most of it.
Why?
Because I thought that it was a bad deal for U.S. manufacturers largely. Because it was seen as more of the same. It was seen as more, to me, the same thing as NAFTA, which was sort of this idea of outsourcing. Okay.
But that's my point, is that, so now, I mean, given the fact that, you know, Trump has already given us a basic outline of what his trade policy is, because he's already given us one trade deal. Where is the optimism in this new trade deal with Japan, especially when it's us, the one that seems like we're desperate to make these trade deals?
Okay, so let's respond to this in the following way. If we're going to ask, like, if you compare U.S. policy under Donald Trump to U.S. policy under Biden, Kamala Harris, then in almost every way it was better for workers under Trump. Real wage growth was higher than it was under, or was at least doing better than it was under Joe Biden. Inflation was markedly lower.
But you know why, right, Rob?
Inflation.
You know why?
Why is that? Go ahead, inform me.
You know why? In fact, me and Jake had this debate not too long ago. Is, you know, Trump came in right in the coattails of Obama's economy. In fact, no, it is true, because in fact, you can look this up yourself. In Obama's last 4 quarters, he created more jobs in one of those quarters, had a higher GDP than Trump did in his entire 4 years. And I'm not even going to count the COVID year, because that would be cheating. But you know, if you look at every single graph, Rob, you talk a lot. Let me talk. So if you look at every single graph, right, when Trump came in, at this point is where he got the baton, okay? And then he ran with it upwards. I mean, if you deny that, you're denying reality, Rob.
It works the opposite way. For example, the poorer that an economy is when a president comes in, the more the more easy it will be to have them have good statistics to make it look good. For example, let's say that I'm elected president in 2028 and I drive inflation up 100% and crush 80% of jobs in this country. Then it would be easy for the following presidents to say, look at how many jobs I created just by undoing some of my drastic mistakes. Agreed?
Unless there was more jobs created than what the baseline was.
Okay, but nonetheless, right, we could see that would be the case, that it would be easier. So if it is true that Obama had a humming economy, which is debatable, but if that is true, please, let me finish. Please, I notice as we go on, you become more and more of an interrupter.
Go ahead.
Nonetheless, right, if it is true that Biden's economy was humming along, then we would expect to see the economy under Trump to be stagnant. Instead, we saw that it was markedly better than we saw, especially when it came to Joe Biden. And then we see when Trump gets into office again, it's markedly better than what we saw under Joe Biden. And so the idea that this is just all coincidence, it's always when Trump's doing good with the economy, it's because the Democratic president before them, it is nonsensical. The idea that like, by the way, if we're comparing, right, the idea of trade deals, and I say that I have problems with USMCA, etc. And so what are we comparing it to, though? And we're talking about a message of economic populism. You've already agreed that we should compare to something. You said we should compare compare, when it came to inflation numbers, Biden's fourth quarter. The implication there is we should compare the two candidates or the two parties at this point, Donald Trump versus Kamala Harris or Donald Trump versus Biden, etc., that we should compare them. And when it comes to sort of free trade and it comes to sort of trade deals that would benefit the United States, it is absolutely clear that Donald Trump and his tariff strategy is far less free trade and would be therefore more economic populist than Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. Unfortunately for you, particularly on this issue of tariffs, I remind the audience, you had the chance to pick whatever topic you want, and you literally picked one of the hardest topics to defend. If anything, you could say Trump's tariff policy is to a fault too economic populist. That would be the argument. It's too much of economic populism. It's worrying too much about the U.S. worker, which is going to harm U.S. consumers, which is going to lead to bad things. It's going to lead to, a decline in GDP, etc. You understand that, we wouldn't consider the GDP has very little to do with economic populism. We're talking about what workers want, jobs, increasing real wage growth. That data is striking that right now, under almost every metric, Donald Trump and his policies are outperforming what Joe Biden was.
Rob, I don't know if you're trolling me right now. Are you trolling me right now? Because I didn't even expect to
crushing.
Go into a debate.
The word is crushing.
Hold on. I didn't even expect to go into a debate about Trump inheriting at least a good economy. I mean, you acknowledge that, right?
No, Trump did not inherit a good economy.
I don't know what to tell you. So let's.
What was good about it? By what metric?
Because by every metric, I just
real wage growth.
Real wage growth.
Okay, what was it under Biden?
Under Biden?
Yes.
Real wage growth. I can't tell you the number right now off the top of my head, but I can look it up for you.
But give me you can look it up. That's fine. But give me an idea.
But I know for a fact that when adjusted for inflation, real wage growth under Biden was more than under Trump.
That's not true. And you understand what real wage growth is? It factors in inflation.
Absolutely.
Okay, so when you say adjusted for inflation, that's sort of repeating yourself.
So look, I'm going to look this up for you, okay? Because I saw this earlier. Just because I anticipated you might bring this up.
Okay. That's good for you. You know what I anticipated you'd bring up? Nothing, because I didn't know who I was debating or what the topic was.
That is true, man.
So December...
Look, and I acknowledged that earlier, man. This is not fair for you.
Average real wage growth under quarter four in 2024 was 1.37%. Let's see. For Trump, average real wage growth has been 1.06%. If we look at the totality of Biden's term, what was the total of real wage growth under Biden's 4 years? Let's see. Negative 1.3%. Factcheck.org reports a negative 2.24%. Real median weekly earnings for full-time workers fell by negative 2.14%. Real wages declined approximately 1.3% to 2.24% under the Biden presidency. Cool.
So look, here's what I'm saying. From 2017 to 2019. So look, so so Trump's first term, from inauguration day to mid-June 2017, he had a real wage growth of 1.3%. Okay. And from 2017 to 2019, which is before COVID, he had a wage growth of 0.8%.
Okay.
So when Biden comes in, his full term, he had it also at, this is for Biden's full term, 0.8%.
No, that's not true. I just told you the numbers. The numbers ranged from factcheck.org, for example, said it was negative 2.24%.
Well, let me see here, because I know for a fact ChatGPT is not lying to me, right?
Okay, so you're saying that you're looking at ChatGPT and it is telling you that under the 4 years of President Biden, that real wage growth went up how much?
No, this, but it's sourced. It's sourced from Axios and New York Post.
Okay, and so Axios and New York Post are saying under the 4 years of Joe Biden, real wage growth went up how much?
Of the 0.8%.
Okay,
for the full term.
Okay, I'd like to see that source. I don't believe you.
Okay,
I believe you're. I don't think you're lying. I think you're misreading it.
Okay, I'll send you the link.
You
want to do that right now?
RC3, you can send it in the back chat if you want, and I can send like Rob will get it in the back chat.
Yeah, that's
okay.
Of the StreamYard.
How do you do that?
Yeah, so there's a private chat there at the bottom on the right hand side. You just click that, and then you can send your link there on the private chat. Chat with everyone in the studio. It's right there.
Right there. Okay.
Yeah, you got it.
Yeah.
Cool. So that way Rob can look at what you're looking at.
I just think that you're. I'm not. Perhaps you're right, but the data I've looked at both previously and here tonight seems to suggest a stark different picture. I believe that what this will be is from a different term, like maybe looking from the years of 2023 to 2024, is my guess. But I do not believe it will be from Biden's entire term that real wage growth was up 0.8%. In fact, I've never even heard anyone make that argument. It's stunning that that's not an argument that the Biden team would have been making going into the campaign in 2024. Instead, it seemed they made excuses for the lack of real wage growth.
If you could get Biden to make any argument, it would have been a good day.
Well, his team that was running it, which you said you would have preferred over Trump as well.
Yeah, but his team fucking sucked, man. And
yet, you supported them.
Well, they had better policies.
Than what? Than Trump?
Than Trump, absolutely.
Going into that election, what policies of a Biden administration did you think were better than the first term of Trump? Economically, things were much better in the first term of Trump than under Biden. Foreign policy, they were much better in Trump under Biden. The border was much better in Trump under Biden. So what policy did you favor?
But there's a lot that you're leaving out, though, Rob. Okay, like there's a lot that you're leaving out. I mean, for starters, as a baseline, I'm going to say it again, even though...
Just real quick, I promise I'll leave you finish. Did you... I'm going to go full screen, so can you put that in the chat, just so let me know when you put it, so I know to look for it. That's all I'm saying. I'm sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
It's in the chat now.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so do you acknowledge, right, from baselines, when Trump grabbed the baton from Obama, he was at a better starting point than when Biden inherited the economy from Trump?
Wait. Yes.
What?
Yes, like, I will acknowledge that, but I think that means...
That's big of you, Rob!
No. I had to think about exactly what you were saying, but that, again, I've already explained how that has the opposite effect of what you're saying. That would mean that the gains we saw under Biden, for example, so many of the job gains we saw under Biden were literally just jobs that the lockdown policies that he supported cost us.
Right, but then...
And so then we rehired them back, and Biden celebrated and was like, yay!
Well, I mean, it's politics, and you would do that too, but
no.
There's a lot more...
I would celebrate that. I wouldn't celebrate lockdowns, I'll tell you that.
Oh, no, but the lockdowns happened under Trump. So...
True thing you've said, criticize the shit out of him for that, yeah. I was here, baby. I was criticizing the shit out of Trump for that.
What you're willing to acknowledge is another thing, right? It's okay, so we've already established that you believe that Trump inherited a better economy from Obama than what Biden inherited from Trump, right? And you're making this argument that it's actually be better in reverse. That's the first time I've heard that before.
Can I point to you how wrong you are, even with the data you just sent? Do you mind real quick?
So congratulations on creativity, at the least.
Jake, can you click that shared screen and bring it on screen? Now, I just want to say, when we're debating these difficult economic policies, and you're talking about sort of I can't hear you, sir. I'm sorry. I can't hear you, Jake. You might be muted.
Sorry about that. Quick thing right here.
Yes,
we got it.
You see where it says Biden 2021 real blue collar wage growth negative 1.7%? That's your source.
Right. Now, but read the bottom.
Okay, so I just want to be clear. Now you're going to tell me that the source is going to say that this chart is incorrect as I further read.
No, I'm just saying, read the bottom. Okay,
we'll read it together. So where do you want me to start reading?
Start at the top.
You want me to read the whole article?
And no. From under the graph.
Okay, I just want to be clear. You're going to tell me that this says under the Biden administration, real wage growth was up 0.8%. That's what this article is going to tell me.
It's going to give an explanation. Just go on and read.
I just want to know before we read it, because I think you're going to move the goalpost. So I just want to get what your claim is. I just want to get it laid out. That's all.
Now, I don't want to move the goalpost on you. I don't want to pull a Rob Noor. So that's not what I'm saying.
Okay, then what are you saying? What is your claim? And then we will see if this data... It seemed that I very specifically asked you like 4 times. You're telling me that you're looking at sources from Axios and the New York Post that say that under the 4 years of the Biden presidency, real wage growth was up 0.8%. Because I think you're misreading that, and that's probably talking about a term of like 2023 to 2024. You said, yes, that's what I'm saying. Here's the source. Immediately I go to your source. The first thing I read is the chart they shows that real wage growth is down 1.7%.
I understand. I understand. Easy. Relax. Relax. I get it.
I'm very calmer than you are.
All I'm saying is, it doesn't sound like it. That was a hard swallow.
Big Lebowski.
So what I'm saying is, read the first couple paragraphs, and if I'm wrong about it, I'll admit it. No. In front of Jake, I'll admit it.
I am not going to read the first couple paragraphs because you have yet to confirm what you're actually saying. It seemed that you had said before I opened this source that this source was going to say that real wage growth under the Biden administration had increased.
Correct.
0.8%. Okay, so you're acknowledging. Okay, so this article is going to tell us
0.8%, right? And so if in the explanation, if it doesn't say that, I'm man enough to say I misread it.
Okay, the Trump administration. Okay, the Trump administration has a new favorite talking point in the economy. The blue-collar wages are rising the most in inflation-adjusted terms at the start of presidential administration in modern history. The big picture. The data reflects solid wage growth compared with low inflation throughout the first 5 months of 2025. Fears of tariff-driven inflation surge cutting into the rank-and-file workers' paycheck have not materialized. That's funny. Your own source speaks to what I was saying. But this measure has also shown numerous runs of stronger real wage growth in recent decades, not just the start of presidential term. Indeed, there was a stretch of stronger real wage gains by just this measure last year, driving the news. The analyst in the chart shown above was generated by the Treasury Department, has been promoted to the White House. Okay, maybe you'd actually is saying this chart's wrong. Fair enough. We've seen real wage growth is for 5 workers, non-supervised workers, almost 2% in the first 5 months. By the numbers, the data in question. So that said what you claimed. The Biden administration.
Okay, look. So it was an explanation for the chart, but look, but
no. You were quite clear. You were quite clear.
Hold on, relax. I'm getting there. What I'm saying is that it didn't say 0.8%, and I'm mad enough to admit it. Okay, I'm mad enough to admit it. But I know for a fact, Rob, that I read this somewhere. Okay, and so I would love to get back to you on this point, on this specific point.
No, I can't let this slide. I cannot let this slide. I cannot let this slide. This is such bad form. I've enjoyed our conversation. It is incredible bad. Please, let me explain. Please, let me explain. I've enjoyed this conversation. I'm still enjoying it. Don't get me wrong. But this is incredibly bad form. We just specifically, like 7 times I repeated the claim, and you said, yes, that's what I'm saying. That this document will say that real wage growth under Biden went up 0.8%. And then literally you're like, nah, you're right. It doesn't say that. That's absurd. You're gaslighting, and it makes me distrust everything you've claimed about economic data, which you've provided very little evidence for. It seems to me that you're either so ignorant of the facts that you're just pulling numbers out of your ass, or you're just straight up lying. This example proves it.
Rob, settle down. Don't blow this up to be more than what it is, okay?
You're lying.
I told you. In fact, I told you. I sent you the link, and I said, if it doesn't say that what I was claiming at 0.8%, then I'll be man enough to admit it. Okay?
I don't know what to say. You had every chance to say this. Oh, I don't know if it says that. But you kept saying, yes, it does. And if I'm wrong, I'll admit it. And then it was like, yes, I knew it didn't say that. Then why did you get... It's almost like... And this is a debate strategy that people will use. They'll just throw something out. They'll throw a claim out, and they expect someone not to look into it. So I'm like, that sounds wrong to the ear. Can you show me proof? And you're incapable of providing it, but you pretended... Please, let me finish. Don't interrupt. Don't interrupt. Please. please, let me finish.
Went line by line, Rob.
Please, let me finish, right? Don't become a chronic interrupter in bad faith, just like you've been a liar here in bad faith. Now you're compounding. Now you're compounding.
We're both doing it.
I don't
You're
interrupt
not
near
a
as
saint.
much as
You're not a saint.
Nonetheless,
You're both doing it.
I would never claim to be a saint. Nonetheless, what we could see is that you had every opportunity to tell me, well, no, I can't find data that says that, but I think I read it somewhere. But you didn't. You continued until the last minute, where I literally went through, looking at your article, starting to read it while the debate was going on, then putting the process up of sharing it, Jake going through the process of sharing it, us going through the process of reading it together, and you admit, as soon as we get through it, yeah, I knew it never said what I just told you that it said. That's horseshit.
No, nonsense. That's not what happened, Rob. You and I went line by line on this, okay? We talked about it at the very beginning. We went line by line. You asked for an article. You asked for the source. I sent you the source, okay? And before I sent the source, I read exactly what I wanted you to read. Okay.
I literally said, the reason that I'm going to get you to admit that this is what you're saying, this article is saying, is because you're going to move the goalpost. You said, I'm not going to pull a Rob Nor and move the goalpost. I'm saying that this is what this says. And if it doesn't, then I'm man enough to admit that I misread it or something. Then you admit, I never said, I knew that it didn't say that. That's bullshit. I'm willing to move on, but this is bullshit. It's bullshit.
I didn't move the goalpost, and it's kind of freaking out that you're blowing up like this.
Now look, RC3, Rob just stated that he's willing to move on.
I am.
Now, if you guys aren't willing to kind of agree on this, RC3, maybe you have some kind of claims on the border, because that's a big one, especially we're here in the South Texas area. Maybe the immigration policies that Trump has launched out. I know you have a big issue with that. That's a big one on your podcast.
And if I could say real quick too, real quick, you said you had an hour and a half out. I don't.
Yeah.
But we're about there. But if you want to stay longer, I'm totally game. If not, get to your best point.
Yeah, no, I do have a hard out right now.
I would love you. Okay, all right.
I mean, I look, listen, I've enjoyed the conversation. This blow up here at the end is a little strange, but I would love to do it again. You know, we could do it again, and we could just do it on immigration. But I don't feel like we got into the topic of tariffs just like we deep enough. But I mean, regardless, I think we've burned enough, all the light we're going to burn in this conversation.
May I give a closing statement? I mean, you could give one if you want. You can go after me if you want. I don't care. But may I give a closing statement for you, lead for your audience?
Absolutely.
Okay. The central thesis that you wanted to argue was whether or not Trump was an economic populist. And I don't think that you've proven the case that you set out to make, that he was actually terrible when it comes to economic populism. You may argue that some of his economic policies would be ones that you disagree with, that may even affect us negatively economically. But I don't think that you anywhere came close to arguing that it was antithetical to sticking up for U.S. workers. To the contrary, I think you not only were not able to affirmatively make the case, but you lost it quite considerably on almost every point that we talked about. The idea of tariffs would lead to better trade deals for the United States, or would lead to more manufacturing coming to the United States. I don't think you were able to successfully argue that. I think that when you say things all over the time that you have to admit that you're contradictory or wrong on, for example, you say we should compare inflation data compared to Biden's last term, or to his last quarter, and we see that actually the inflation data is lower, and all sorts of things like that occur throughout the debate. It shows that you really don't have a mastery of these facts, and I think instead what's occurring is you're listening to economists who have a proclivity since Trump's first term to spell doom and gloom on every single policy that he issues, and oftentimes we don't see that come to fruition. The truth is, these economists were implying that we would see far more negative effects earlier than we have, and the slight uptick that we see in inflation numbers isn't actually something on its own to be worried about much at all. It may be that Trump's tariffs policies will backfire, but it won't be because it wasn't economic populism. It would be to the counter, that it was probably too much protectionism and economic populism. So ultimately, I think you failed to meet the case. I enjoyed the conversation thoroughly. I admit to getting frustrating at the end, and I'll leave it up to the audience's judgment, but I think this is indicative of the entire debate. I think that perhaps you're misreading things, or perhaps you're gaslighting us, but it's clear that when you're citing statistics and stuff, you really don't have an idea of what they're coming from or what they're really talking about. Nor am I an economist, and I fumble through some of this stuff myself as well, and I think there is valid criticism to be made of Trump's economic positions. But again, remember this to the audience. Your claim was that you were going to prove that Trump was detrimental and wasn't an economic populist. And I think you spectacularly failed to prove that in every way.
Okay, so then my last statement is just as simple as follows, is that I made three central claims, right? Number one was that Trump, in fact, was the enemy of the working class. My first point to back that up was the actions that he's taken on the CFPB. Now, Rob didn't answer any of those questions. He, in fact, pivoted to other things. I called him out on it, and Rob never went back to it. I mean, there's the tape. There's the video. My first claim was that, when Trump came in, he gutted the CFPB, and there was a specific case that I pointed out, and it was the Navy Federal Credit Union case, where our own Army veterans got stiffed for no apparent reason after Navy Federal Credit Union had already agreed to this. Where's the populism in that? Rob never answered that question, but yet he's accusing me of being evasive. Get the fuck out of here. Now, number two, we talked about tariffs, right? Rob's theory it's funny because Rob's theory matches almost nothing to what Trump's doing. So what Trump's doing is he's raising tariffs on everybody. And he's saying, okay, the point is to bring back manufacturing, but wink, wink, also, we're ready for trade deals, which would offset his whole point to reshore manufacturing. It's incoherent. This makes no fucking sense. And it's the same kind of shit you get from Trump supporters. It's just incoherent babble, and it's always moving the goalpost. And look, and I'm ready to do this again with Rob if he wants to, it is what it is. But I want to thank you guys for whoever's sticking it to the end. We'll go back and we'll cut this up, and we'll
RC3. I would suggest that you do a reaction on your channel to this debate yourself, so you can kind of debunk everything Rob has claimed and tell him that he's an idiot, etc. Really go thorough on this debate on your channel. I think that will be very entertaining. Not only that, Rob has massive super chats here on his side at the end that do talk about you. I'll just give you one last thing. I know you have a hard out, but if you want, maybe Rob could read some of those super chats and you can maybe address some of these claims that the individuals are saying. It's up to you.
Yeah, real quick. I got about 2 minutes.
Okay, Rob, go ahead.
I'll be selective. I haven't looked at them, I'll be honest, but I will
some pretty
try
good
to
ones.
find the ones. Let's see.
Now, just real quick, for my audience that's going to be listening to this is a very skewed chat. So just keep that in mind.
That's certainly
Yeah,
true.
it is.
That
It
is
is.
absolutely true.
That's
Absolutely.
100% true. That's 100% true.
Nate for $5 says the point is to get people to buy American-made goods over foreign goods. We won't eat the cost cause we eventually won't buy foreign nearly as much.
Okay. Right. Again, but that assumes that no trade deal that assumes that no trade deals get done, and Americans are forced to remanufacture here in America. I mean, if we make trade deals, then we're still going to be buying from other countries. It just makes no sense. It's incoherent.
I explained why that wouldn't be. Blasterbot gives two $5 chats. By the way, to my audience, I'll read these all after the debate. It says, "You got owned," and runs from the point. W. Rob. Then he says, "The my face to your fist style of debate is awesome, inspiring, and a bold choice. Let's see how it plays out." SD guy for $5 says, "Are you not entertained?" Well, let's see. Not quite dead. $5 says, "Well done, calling out the liar." Beatrix Rumaford says, $5. Letter carriers suck. This guy totally voted on vibes.
Hey, RC3, can you address that one? Letter carriers suck. Voted on vibes.
I mean, listen, man. We are letter carriers are the spirit of Benjamin fucking Franklin, man. We are the last remaining fucking street warriors. Directly tied to our founding fathers, so that guy can suck a dick.
Okay, there you go. All right,
very liberal of you. There,
very liberal of you. By the way, I'm also a letter carrier, and I voted for Trump, but nevertheless,
voting against your own interest, there, Jake.
Oh, if you say so, bro.
Well, anyways, if you got to leave RC3, I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
All right, Rob, we'll do it again, man, and we'll get this last little situation cleared up. There's definitely a .8 in there somewhere.
Okay. We'll see you, man.
All right,
have a good one, man.
Y'all take it easy.
God bless, bro, even though you're an atheist. Even though
guessed.
you're an atheist scumbag. Yeah, God bless anyways.
Wait, isn't Rob an athist too?
No, he's not.
Just
Christian.
You saw me debate Andrew and you assumed, right?
I know. I'm fucking with you.
Exactly.
The last question before I go. Were those your genuine opinions, or were you guys like mock debating?
No, that's genuine, and further to that, did you know Andrew Wilson's actually an employer of mine? I don't give a
Get the
fuck.
fuck outta here.
I'll debate him every day when I think he's wrong. Yeah, I stand by all the positions I made. I've done mock debates, but I announce if I'm debating a position I don't believe. That was certainly my
Okay.
beliefs. So,
All right. Well, that was good to watch, man. And we'll
do you
we'll
think
meet again.
do you think he did better than you debating me?
I think. Listen, I don't think I'm never afraid of the Andrew Wilson ideas. I mean, these are some of the most archaic ideas. What we got to look out for is the tactics of Andrew Wilson. You know, I mean, we're talking about divine command theory, Rob. Come on.
What do you think
Listen.
about what? I'm not interested. What do you think about my tactics? Were they unfair?
I mean, for the most part, I thought he was trying to debate bro you. And
No. I'm asking in this debate. Do you think? Are you going to say that I use debate bro tactics?
I think there was a lot of theatrics, if I'm being honest.
Really?
When two men have a conversation about things like this, things that are, here's what I'm assuming, right? Is that you don't know everything.
Fair assumption.
I don't know everything, right? But we're both engaging in good faith, right? And so sometimes you're gonna say things that I think are full of shit, right? And so we'll and this one last thing. In this debate, I wasn't quite sure if we were gonna do like the fact checking in real time. So that was also kind of something that I wasn't expecting.
Well,
But-
you both
You
kind of
could
did.
just bullshit. That's your,
You both-
that's your argument.
No,
I didn't
no,
even
no.
know the topic.
See,
Yeah.
that's the straw manning tactic right there. That's it right there. That's what it is. I didn't say that.
What do you mean? Like, if I may, what we're talking about here specifically when you're saying theatrics, I literally about 7 times repeated over and over. You're saying this article says X, and you're like, yes. And I'm like, you're not going to move the goalposts. No, I wouldn't do that. As soon as we start reading it, yeah, I know, it doesn't say that. And then you're like, oh, I didn't, your excuses, I didn't think we were going to fact check.
No, it's okay. So I mean, for purposes of full disclosure, and look, and I'm not. Listen, bro. If once you get to know me, you'll understand that everything I do and everything that I say, if I'm wrong about something, I mean, it is what it is. We're human beings. So when I was doing debate prep for this, right, there was a few articles that matched what I was saying. Okay, and so right now, since we're in a hurry, I chat GPT'd it, right, and so the first Axios article was the one that came up. And
But
so
let me show you how I could have fixed it. Let me show you
that
how
was
you
that.
could have fixed this. Oh, I don't know. I didn't read this article, but we could read it together to see if it says that. That's
Possibly.
That's fair.
Possibly.
To say, yes, I read it and it says this, and then as soon as we start going through, nah, I know it
I never
doesn't
said
say
I
it.
read it. I never said I read it.
Well, it heavily implied when you said, yes, this is what it says, that you read
You
it.
You assumed. And you know what they say about people who assume?
So I just want to be clear. Your defense now is, you falsely assumed I read the information I was saying backed up my position.
That is correct.
Okay.
That's dope. Thank you for the honesty there.
Man.
All right, Rob,
But-
I gotta go. Virtual
Okay,
high
well,
five.
hold on. RC3, I just want to read you one last thing. I promise.
Okay, go
This was lower class. He's on your channel right now. He just messaged over there. He said, liked and subbed. I don't agree with you on almost anything, but it takes balls to argue what you believe. Good on you, man. So there you go, man. You got some subs out for your channel. And nevertheless, man, God bless you. Thank you so much for doing this debate in the first place, man.
Hey, Jake, was it a good debate?
It was fun. It was so fun, man. But yeah, and I'll let Rob know why it was so good.
We'll talk more about it later. And Rob, we'll do this again anytime. But
Okay, thanks, man.